think they are, and I think that we will unify and we will come together and find a leader and defeat the worst government in our history. A very divisive government. I mean, his speech the other day about the truckers, he was calling for violence. I mean, that's what I heard.
Yeah. Chris, did you want to jump in, talk about what we just heard?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I missed a lot of that. I was just on another call, despite my face still being here. So I'll say a couple of points, and I hope they're not too disconnected from the conversation, but open to your reaction.
Well,
Um,
then let's take this opportunity. Maybe if you want to introduce some new topics to talk about. I know you've been providing some thoughtful commentary on how the party needs to define itself and how, especially on issues uh, where it's lacked a voice, such as
yeah,
development. And please go ahead.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm like a big housing policy nerd. I I I think it's important after like what happened today happened to not be too revisionist with things. So when I think back to Aaron O'Toole's federal platform, I really like the housing policy. I don't think what was missing there was good policy. There was a lot of it was probably the best federal platform as it relates to housing that I've ever seen. But what I do think mattered is like the strategy around how it was delivered. Um, so I believe in something like a weak version of a great man theory of history, and I think that's especially true of politicians. I think that one person can say the same thing as another person, but if they say it in a better way, like it matters a lot more and it hits a lot harder. I think that housing, for example, like we should have used that as a wedge. I think when you're in opposition, you don't want to be in a position where you're kind of like being the nice guy, proposing nice things in a nice way. You want to be hammering the incumbent on where they're dropping the ball. The liberals basically took the conservative housing policy, maybe watered it down by 10%, and then injected it into their platform. So they also had a pretty good housing policy. But what Erin O'Toole could have said is, um, the platform said, housing is expensive because there's not a lot of it, or there's not enough of it. There's not enough of it mostly because municipal land use rules constrain new supply. And what Erin O'Toole could have said, which is something that Justin Trudeau could not have said, is that a federal conservative government will be a lot tougher with municipalities that block housing development. And that's because conservatives don't rely on those ridings for victory. So I think like the missed opportunity was not so much like a lack of good policy. It was just we weren't using the right policy wedges to kind of differentiate ourselves from the Liberal Party. And we didn't have the right person, in my view, delivering the message. Again, this goes back to my gray man theory. I think that like how you come across on social media, because social media is so disintermediated, you don't have the benefit of like reading from a script, like you might have had if you were just doing TV ads. People expect a lot more authenticity, and if you're not authentically interesting or compelling, you can't hide that anymore. And I don't know if we've gotten around to this part of the conversation, but I think Polyev has this, and I think he's demonstrated that he has a lot of this. His videos have been the most viral. He sounds the most authentic as far as I can tell of the people that even make it to my feed. When he speaks, it sounds like he's speaking from a place of conviction, as opposed to a place of kind of political triangulation to hit the right notes without not hitting the wrong notes. So of course, more good policy. To echo something that Candace said, Blake Masters, which is a Senate candidate race I'm really following in Arizona and the States, he has this great line. Um, you should be able to raise a family on one income, right? So if we're going to talk about like how do we bring the SOCONs along with us, and I don't like necessarily label myself as such, like that is a much more interesting version of social conservatism. How do we raise a family on one income than whatever kind of conversion therapy things people are talking about? So yes to more policy, but also we need the right person delivering the policy. And frankly, I don't think Aaron O'Toole was that guy.
Well, safe to say now that he's not today's man. So
Did we lose Stephen?
Steve, I think you muted yourself.
sorry. Twitter Spaces are still very unstable, but Twitter has adjusted its platform that if the host gets disconnected, they can quickly reconnect if they need to, and that is a new feature. So instead of this whole space crashing, and then everyone getting kicked out, I'm able to jump back in if it crashes for me, which is good. Although one of the space that we were running last night had like over 1,200 people going in and out of it at the same time, and it crashed so hard for me that I actually had to reinstall the Twitter app. So that I couldn't actually, like, I reset my phone and I tried logging back into Twitter, and the timeline actually wouldn't load, and so I had to like uninstall and reinstall the app, which is nuts. But anyway, I'm glad to be back. I just wanted to mention that, Roy, I had not seen Justin Trudeau call for violence, so I just wanted to clarify that point. If you have something tangible to share with the group on that, I'm happy to allow you to clarify that, but I don't think we should just put that out there as something that something so casual as that. So,
well, the way what I meant was that he was being extremely divisive, calling people racist and homophobes and this and that and the other
okay,
thing.
well,
And
let's leave it there. I don't want to put any sort of misinformation out, but I think Candace wants to clarify that if she's got some information, but please go ahead, Candace. Or Candace, you can talk about whatever you like.
Yeah, I didn't want to go back to the Trudeau stuff because I think we should focus on the task
Yeah.
at hand. Look, I don't think that Erin O'Toole lost the election because of his housing policy. I think that, to echo something that I think Chris said, is that he lost the election because of his inability to connect. Look, I try to talk to a lot of people out there. I try to talk to my non-political friends and neighbors and try to get the sense that they have. And I was speaking to a woman who lives on my street. She literally has blue hair. She's really out there, and she's a conservative voter, true and true. And she said, look, our guy is arrogant and he talks down to people, and that's why he didn't win. And I thought that was an interesting perspective. I think that the authenticity thing is real. You have to believe in what you're selling. And I think that we have to be honest about what we want, what conservatives want to see happen in the country. We want to be honest about the path forward. And so, when we're talking about something like housing, it's like there's kind of an elephant in the room, right? It's like we're letting in record numbers of immigration. I think the 2021 numbers came out yesterday or today, and we let in more people than we ever have in the history of our country. The previous record was set, I think, in the interwar years. So there's a whole bunch of people coming into Canada that might have an impact too. And there's just some issues that it seems like the Conservatives are afraid to talk about, don't want to talk about. I would like to see a little bit more, perhaps. I don't know if it's bravery is the right word, but honesty when it comes to some of the issues of the day. And I would like to hear other people talk a little bit about family policy and try to like work out and hash out some more ideas with that. I know that there's some interesting stuff being put forward by people like I think Paige McPherson's good on this issue, and Jenny Roth. I've heard some things on it. Kaylin Ford as well. But I would like to hear Conservatives talk more about a family-oriented party and policies and vision of the country. And I think that is a winning ticket. Forget about the whole SoCon red Tory divide. I think that most people who identify as being on the center right or conservative, they have really strong family values, and that goes way beyond the traditional conservative voter. And you talk about new Canadians coming to the country. So many of them put family and community and faith first, and those are the kind of messages that can really resonate and you can connect with. So I think there's so much opportunity for conservatives. There's also, I think, is an incredible moment of a sort of working class revolt and uprising happening in the country, and it doesn't seem like any political party really wants to be there to sort of understand and accept the grievances and the concerns of these people. I will say Pierre Poilievre and some other MPs have been out there talking to some of the truckers, but I think that also presents an incredible opportunity of realignment. We've seen it in the UK, we've seen it in the US with Trump and the sort of Rust Belt voters going Republican, a lot of Latino voters going Republican. It's like if the Conservatives can speak and capture the imagination of working class people and pull that vote away from the sort of Labour NDP coalition, I think that could be really, really good for the coalition and the electoral fortunes. Instead of trying to perhaps win over so many people in city centres who don't really understand Conservatives, I think that perhaps there's more low-hanging fruit in terms of demographics that might be interested in hearing what a Conservative leader has to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you raise a few interesting points. I think immigration is fundamentally important to the economy of this country, and I think that